To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.
So my dear children, in the earlier chapter, we discussed several things regarding the biosphere lesson, and especially we discussed about several methods of sustainable development and environment management. And over there we discussed about the different kinds of agricultural practices, okay, right, that can be applied which are following the sustainable development, okay. So here within this lesson part, now we are going to discuss about another type of a sustainable practices. Then here we are going to mainly discuss about the usage of traditional knowledge and the technology, right, to improve the sustainable development, okay. So the traditional knowledge and the technology. So my dear children, when you are listening about this phrase traditionals, right, so traditional means here we are using the kinds of things or the mechanisms or the steps that followed during the ancient time period, okay. So we are using these things in order to do our day-to-day works, or in order to do our day-to-day activities. And my dear children, by following, specialty here is that by following these traditional methods, we can improve the sustainable development and also the environment management, okay. Now let's see what are the conditions, what are the things which we can apply within these traditional technological processes, okay. So here it is given. Number one, agriculture. So we can use, right, here we can use the traditional knowledge and use of technology within our agricultural purposes, okay. You know that if you take the human society is mainly focused upon the agriculture, starting from the ancient time period. Even for today, my dear children, we are mainly focusing about the agriculture, or else the human population mainly oriented or mainly originated around the agriculture. Without the agriculture, my dear children, we won't be able to survive within this biosphere. So agriculture is a main kind of or main thing that controls our lifestyles, okay. So it is a main factor, it is a main living factor of us, right. So the other specialty is that, my dear children, when you take the agricultural purposes, most of the times, right, within present environment or within present days, most of the times the agricultural practices that we use are not that much environment friendly, okay. The agricultural practices that we used in normal day-to-day life, I mean like in nowadays, in present life, are not that much environment friendly, right. So let's see. It is mentioned that during the rule of King Parakramabahu the Great, our country was self-sufficient with rice, and rice had even been exported. So my dear children, like I said, nowadays we are using different kinds of agricultural practices which are not environment friendly. However, as you can see here, it is mentioned that during the rule of King Parakramabahu, during the period of kings, okay, especially during the period of King Parakramabahu, our country was a self-sufficient country. Which means, my dear children, we are able to produce our own goods, and we are able to produce our own agricultural products, okay, that is necessary for our country. So we produced all of these things within our country. We never imported these things, okay. So our country was self-sufficient during that time period. Even though nowadays we are using different kinds of chemical substances, different kinds of machines, right? Even though we are using those things, we haven't got the ability to come up to that kind of an extent. Okay. So, however, during ancient time period, even though they haven't got any of these things, right? Even though they haven't got any of these things, our country was self-sufficient. Okay. Now we're going to find out, investigate what are the traditional practices, right, that can be adapted for nowadays. I mean, in the present days when we are doing agriculture. And my dear children, by doing that, so how we can manage the environment sustainably, and also how we can manage the environment, right? In how we can manage the environment to give out least damages, right? Least damages for the biosphere and for the people like us. Okay, so let's see what are the practices that we can apply within the agriculture in order to get the most, or in order to get the sustainable development and the proper environmental management. So here it is given once more. At present, we are unable to achieve such heights although machines and agricultural chemicals are excessively used. So like I said, even though we are using these times, right, even though we are using different kinds of machines and agricultural chemicals heavily during these times, we haven't got any chance to reach that much of a extent, or to that much of a height. It's mainly because, my dear children, nowadays the soil has got infertile. It's the main reason. What is the reason for this? For the infertility of the soil? Because we are adding more and more chemicals to the ground. We are adding more and more agrochemicals in order to enhance the harvest. So it's not good for us. So day by day, the harvest that we can obtain is going to reduce. If you are not providing that needed amount of agrochemicals to the harvest or to the agricultural fields, then my dear children, you won't be able to receive harvest at all. Now the soil has got used to it. That's the main reason, right? So here it is given. Therefore, instead of seeds and agricultural chemical purchased from multinational companies, it is the high time to use traditional agricultural methods such as local seeds cultivation methods. So my dear children, nowadays, I mean in present, even we are using some genetically enhanced crops, genetically enhanced seeds in order to get plenty of harvest. However, even though we are using these things, right, we haven't reached that height, the self-sufficientness. We haven't reached that thing, right? And the other thing is that, my dear children, even though we are using these things, even though we are receiving plenty of harvest, right, when consuming these things, my dear children, there is a possibility of increasing different kinds of non-communicable diseases, right? Non-communicable diseases, that means non-contracting diseases, like the diseases which we discussed in the earlier chapters. Can you remember? Over there we discussed about several kinds of diseases which are not getting contracted from one person to another. So when now we are consuming the food items and the materials which are being produced nowadays. When consuming these things, my dear children, there is a high tendency of receiving different kinds of defects, different kinds of non-contracting diseases. So even though the harvest is being received at a greater extent, my dear children, there is a risk of getting, or there is a risk of having different kinds of diseases, non-contracting diseases, because of using this harvest. Okay, it's mainly because, my dear children, these things are mainly farmed using agrochemicals, and the other thing is that these ones, or these types of crops, are made by genetically modified things. So therefore, both of these things has a possibility, some kind of a possibility to create different kinds of non-communicable diseases. Okay, right then. So here, therefore, instead of seeds and agricultural chemicals purchased from multinational companies, it is high time to use the traditional agricultural methods such as local seeds cultivation methods. So now we know that because of the modern agricultural practices, different kinds of disadvantages are going to happen to the environment and as well as for our health conditions as well. So therefore, my dear children, now it is the most preferable time to shift from these modern methods to traditional methods once more. Because during the traditional time period or during the ancient time period, our country was a self-sufficient country with plenty of harvest or plenty of agricultural crops, plenty of yield. Even we exported these things to other countries as well, right? Like in recent years, my dear children, like in 1970s also, we exported some certain types of rice to different countries like Korea, right? However, now when you come into the present, even we do not have the ability to produce the necessary amount of rice and other grains that that is sufficient for our Sri Lanka, right? So Sri Lanka, the farmers in Sri Lanka, they don't have the ability to produce the necessary amount of agricultural crops and especially rice, which is necessary for Sri Lanka. So that's a terrible case. So it's a proper time to shift from these modern methods to traditional methods, because the traditional cultivation methods and local seeds are much healthier, and also they are good to our environment in each and every way, my dear children. And also, when using different local seeds, there are some other effects which can be obtained from these local seeds, my dear children. Okay, so here it is given, now it is the proper time to go for that traditional seeds and ancient seeds once more, and also to practice out these traditional cultivation method, right? Okay then, so for your extra knowledge, right, a table is given. Within this table, my dear children, you can observe some important information about traditional varieties of paddy. Some information about traditional varieties of paddy. So here, first type of paddy is given, Kurulutuda. Let's see what are the functions of Kurulutuda paddy. Induce spermatogenesis. That means, my dear children, spermatogenesis. So it will help to generate sperms. Okay, it will induce the spermatogenesis. So it will create, or it will help to create sperms within the body of a male. Okay, then make body strength. So the strength of the body is getting increased if you use Kurulutuda rice grain. Okay, next one, reduce joint pain. So it will help to reduce the joint pains. So this joint pain thing is a more I mean, like when you take the joint pain disease, this disease is a disease which is suffered by like most of the adults in nowadays. So as a remedy for that, Kurulutuda is a good rice grain. Okay, so for the people who are using Kurulutuda rice grain, has the ability to use this Kurulutuda grain as a remedy for joint pains. Okay, joint pains. Then the next one, it increases the immunity. So our immunity can also be increased by consuming this Kurulutuda rice grain. Okay, so our body immunity can also be increased. Then next one given, my dear children, act on excretory system readily. So it is going to act on excretory system readily. So that means it helps to keep our excretory system healthy. Okay. So these are the functions, special functions carried out by Kurulutuda rice grains. Now the next one. Next one given, my dear children, Kavanu. Okay, Kavanu. So this is also a type of a rice grain, a traditional rice grain. So it facilitates the digestion of food. It's going to help for the efficient food digestion, right? Efficient food digestion. So facilitate the digestion of food. Next one given, facilitate the absorption of sugar. So it helps to absorb more amount of sugar. You know that sugar is very important for our body. It means that it provides the energy needed for the body. You know that we break down food to get energy. So the main food item that we use in our body is glucose. So you know that each and every food item is breaking down into glucose, especially carbohydrate based food items. So sugar is a carbohydrate based food item. So therefore, when sugar is broken down into small molecules, glucose is being made. So glucose is being utilized to make energy. So here, therefore, it is helpful to facilitate the absorption of sugar into our body. Kavanu. Okay. Next one given, avoid carcinogenic properties. So carcinogenic means, my dear children, right? Carcinogenic means cancer causative. So Kavanu has the ability to avoid cancer causative properties. Okay. That means, my dear children, Kavanu has the ability to absorb, right, or to avoid cancer causative agents from the body, right? So this is a special feature. For nowadays, this is more suitable than, you know that within nowadays, at present, my dear children, the materials, right, or the food items, mainly they contain different kinds of chemical substances, toxic substances that can cause different kinds of cancers. It's mainly because of the agrochemicals and all the other kinds of chemical stuff that we use in our cultivation processes. So therefore, Kavanu is a good remedy in order to avoid those cancers, right? So therefore, my dear children, right, it's important to use these. That's why I told you that it is important to use these traditional crops, traditional paddy seeds, paddy grains. By that way, we can minimize the risk of getting different kinds of diseases to our body. Okay, right. So this is one example. See, right. So these are like two different kinds of paddy that we can observe, right, during the earlier times. So these are the functions of these special two kinds of paddy grains. First one is Kurulutuda, second one is Kavanu. Now let's head on to see the other contents. So number 3 given, Rathal. Rathal. Let's see the functions. Activate excretory systems. So it activates the excretory system. So it helps for the excretion. Next one given, make the body comfortable. So Rathal, consuming Rathal, it is going to make our body comfortable. That means our interior body structures, I mean like our process of digestion and the excretion. So these processes are getting, my dear children, these processes are getting, as you can see, giving out a certain giving out a certain comfort for that kinds of systems. Especially for the excretory system and for the digestion system. Okay, so the process of digestion and for the process of excretion, this type of paddy grain, right, is providing a comfort. Then next one, cure lung diseases and fever. So the next thing is it has the ability to cure lung diseases, different kinds of lung diseases, and also it has the ability to cure fever. Okay, so it is a good remedy for lung diseases and fever. Next one, head abdominal alignments. So it also has the ability to heal head and abdominal alignments. Okay, then next one, clean urine and bile. It has the ability to clean urine and bile. So bile is a pigment, you know that bile is a pigment, right, which is produced in liver and temporarily stored in gallbladder. So it helps to digestion of lipid compounds. So bile is a very important solution, or else bile is a very important organic material contained within our body, human body, right, which helps in digestion of lipid materials. So to clean out bile, my dear children, this paddy grain is very important, right, rathal. Then, my dear children, it also helps to clean urine, right, to clean urine, to clean different kinds of toxic substances, and also different kinds of bacteria and other kinds of things contained, pathogenic things contained within the urine is getting cleaned, filtered out by this kind of paddy grain. All right, here we are discussing about the rathal. Okay, right. Then the next type is given madatavalu. So detoxification, what is that? Toxification, that means subjecting into a toxic material, no? That is, what do you mean by detoxification? So detoxification means it has the ability, madatavalu paddy grain, right? Here we are discussing about madatavalu paddy grain, no? So madatavalu paddy grain has the ability to absorb toxic substances from the body. Okay, that means it has the ability to detoxify our body. It has the ability to detoxify our body. So detoxification can be observed by the paddy grain madatavalu. Next one given, prevent diabetes. So it helps to prevent diabetes, right? That means, my dear children, it also helps to keep our blood glucose level, blood sugar level at an optimum level, to maintain the blood glucose level at an optimum level. Okay, so that is also an added advantage given out by madatavalu, right? Then the next one, avoid gene mutations. You know that it has the ability to detoxify our body, right? So therefore, my dear children, it has the ability to avoid gene mutations. So most of the times gene mutations are going to occur because of entry of different kinds of chemicals into our body, because of entry of different kinds of toxic substances, toxic radiations into our body. It's the main reason for the occurrence of gene mutations, no? So this madatavalu has the ability to absorb these kinds of toxic substances, right? That is, what do you mean by detoxification, right? So because of that, my dear children, it has the ability to absorb harmful radiation and harmful toxic substances from the body. So therefore, it also helps to avoid gene mutations that can happen to our cells and DNA structures. Then next one given, enhance immunity. So also it is going to enhance the immunity. You know that when there are less amount of toxic substances contained within our body, in that case what will happen? Our body immunity will definitely increase, because our immunity system has a good chance to fight against the bacteria and other kinds of pathogenic microorganisms, right? So even so if the body is weakened because of different kinds of toxic substances, then the immunity system will not have the strength to fight out those toxic pathogenic microorganisms, okay, because of the action of toxic substances. So this madatavalu, right, this madatavalu paddy grain has the ability to absorb those toxic substances from the body, no? So therefore, our immune system can work well within the body, and our immune system is getting strengthened by this type of paddy grain. Okay, so our immune system will have the ability to fight against these pathogenic microorganisms without any trouble. Then the next one, growth and repair tissues. So growth and repair tissues. So the next one would be for the growth and for the repair of tissues. This madatavalu is also helpful. Then cooling of the body. So it also helps to cool our body as well. So these are the advantages that we can obtain by consuming Madatavalu. Okay, right. Then the next one, Suandel. So the Suandel, if you take Suandel pedigree, my dear children, it is giving out a pleasant smell. That is why it is referred to as Suandel. Okay, after it is being cooked, it is giving out a very pleasant smell. That is why it is referred to as Suandel, my dear children. Okay, right. Let's see what are the functions. Prevent eye diseases. So it has the ability to prevent eye diseases, my dear children. Okay, has the ability to prevent eye diseases. Next one given, induce nerve activities and avoid diseases. So it has the ability to induce nerve activities, okay, to promote the activities which is going to happen within our nerves, right? So by that way, it has the ability to avoid diseases which are associated with the nervous system. Okay, so nerve irritability is being carried out well when consuming these Suandel paddy grain. Okay, then next one, stimulate a sperm production. That means in simple, spermatogenesis. So it is going to help to stimulate the sperm production. So it helps to stimulate the sperm production, my dear children. The next one, reduce edema. So it also helps to stop or reduce edema, right? Swelling of the body, edema. Next one, anti-diabetic properties. The other thing is that it also has anti-diabetic properties. That means, my dear children, it also helps to maintain the blood glucose level, a proper blood glucose level within the body, right? Then the next one, Mavi. So Mavi has these functions then. Number one, anti-diabetic properties. It has the anti-diabetic properties. It has the ability to control diabetes. That means, my dear children, it has the ability to control blood glucose level, right? Then next one, reduce burning sensation. It reduce the burning sensation in the body. So burning sensation means, my dear children, that means when you consume food, sometimes because of gastritis, also this can happen. So because of the gastritis, because of the increasement of acidity level in the stomach, my dear children, sometimes there is a burning kind of a sensation will come from the stomach. So by consuming Mavi, this burning sensation, right, this burning sensation could be minimized, right? So Mavi is a good remedy for the reduction of burning sensation that is going to happen within the stomach and within our digestive tract, my dear children. Then next one, reduce burning sensation, tridosha, and cure constipation, right? So constipation, I think you have heard about the constipation, right? So constipation means, my dear children, difficulty in removal of fecal materials. I think you already know about these things, right? So difficulty in removing these fecal materials is referred to as the constipation. So it also helps to reduce the tridosha conditions and also to cure constipation too, right? So Mavi contains large amount of fibers, my dear children. So because of having fibers among these Mavi's paddy grains, that is the main reason for the avoid of this burning sensation, tridosha, and also the constipation, right? So you know that constipation can be avoided by consuming food items that contains large amount of fibers. So because of having fibers, my dear children, right, Mavi can be used to, avoid these diseases, right? Then the next one given, improve skin condition. That means, my dear children, to have a fair and a healthy skin, mavi, consumption of mavi is important. Okay, important means actually nowadays actually most of the people nowadays, they don't know about these factors. They don't know about these facts, because these traditional, right, these traditional paddy seeds are now going to disappear from the society, from our society now. We are consuming we are consuming the paddy seeds or paddy grains which are received from other different countries. We are using these things. We are using these paddy grains which are genetically modified ones nowadays. Okay, because those things are very easy to use and more amount of harvest can be obtained now. So therefore, these factors are now going to fade away from our society, especially from the Sri Lankan society. So these things are traditional ones, right? These things are somewhat identical to Sri Lanka, right? Unique to Sri Lanka. These paddy grains are unique to Sri Lanka. So therefore, if Sri Lankan people are not using these things more often, then these things are going to fade away from our society. So therefore, my dear children, right, actually most of the people who are living present in our country, right, they don't have the knowledge about these users of each and every kinds of different paddy grains, right? So that's why they are tending to use different other kinds of paddy grains which are imported to Sri Lanka from different countries. Okay, and also the farmers, they also do not have the enough knowledge, and also they would also prefer those kinds of genetically modified paddy grains over these things, because, my dear children, these things are somewhat hard to grow in these lands right now because of the infertility in soil, right? So therefore, my dear children, usage of these things are now being getting decreased within our society from time to time. So therefore, these special functions are also being dropped down from our society. So it's not a good condition, because you know that we usually, right, the people or the ladies in our society, they use different kinds of cosmetic items in order to keep their skin healthy. However, my dear children, by eating rice also you can keep your skin healthy. However, not all, but like the rice grains like mavi, if you consume these things, then, my dear children, you can keep your skin very healthy, right? Okay, then the next one, kaluhina tea, the type of food, right, the type of paddy food. So here it is given, it prevents constipation. That means, my dear children, it contains some amount of fibers, right? Next one, anti-cancerous properties or carcinogenic properties. So like I said, carcinogenic properties or anti-cancerous properties can be identified within kaluhina tea rice grains as well. Okay, next one, body warming. So it helps to warm our body, right, to keep our optimum temperature within the body, right, to maintain our body temperature is helpful. The next one given, induce spermatogenesis. So once again, it also helps to produce sperms within our body. So these are the main functions carried out by this kaluhina tea paddy grain. Okay, so these are several paddy grains that we can observe, right, within our society, my dear children. But the specialty here is that these paddy grains are traditional ancient paddy grains which are unique to Sri Lanka. So during the earlier times, during the ancient times, Sri Lankan people cultivated these kinds of grains and they got the harvest, right, according to their needful amount. So during the ancient time period, during the king's era, my dear children, Sri Lanka was self-sufficient, mainly because of these kinds of paddy grains. Okay, right then. So, my dear children, Now we have discussed about the different kinds of things related to the agriculture now. So here especially we mainly focused about different kinds of crops that we can use in agricultural purposes. Ancient or traditional crops that we can use during the agricultural purposes, right? Now we are going to discuss about, my dear children, another type of a sustainable development method. So here we are going to discuss the technology of irrigation. So irrigation technology, how we can use the traditional knowledge of irrigation technology, right, for our sustainable development. Let's see. So here it is given, Sri Lankan irrigation system is one of the unique water management systems in the world. Historical large tank can be identified as a great technical attempt with a very complex scientific knowledge. The reservoir constructed across a river, canal, or branch of it with the aim of collecting sufficient water for agricultural activities is known as a tank. So my dear children, Sri Lanka, if you take Sri Lanka, the irrigation systems in Sri Lanka, right, the irrigation systems in Sri Lanka, my dear children, it has a long history. Okay, the history of the irrigation system in Sri Lanka, right, is going way beyond, right, going way beyond several years. I mean, when you go past to our Sri Lankan history, the irrigation system can be clearly identified. Several specialties within the irrigation system can be clearly identified. For a certain example, if you take the Sigiriya mountain fortress, okay, Sigiriya mountain fortress, actually it is a rock fortress. So even for today, scientists are not being able to find out how the people took water to that fortress. The irrigation system carried out by those places are even for today is a mystery, right? So Sri Lanka had a wonderful technique of irrigation system, right? So Vaver is one of that brilliant irrigation systems which can be observed within Sri Lanka. So here it is given once again. Let's see. Sri Lankan irrigation system is one of the unique water management systems in the world. Historical large tank can be identified as a great technical attempt with a very complex scientific knowledge. So the Vaver or the tank, right? So tank is a place, right? Tank is a place where we can observe very technological advancement, right? A brilliant technological advancement can be observed within the Vaver, right? So this is also called as the tank. So if you take a tank, my dear children, within a tank we can observe different kinds of, right, within the tank we can observe different kinds of areas. Within these areas, my dear children, the technology which has been used over there, right, are very advanced. Okay, the technology which has been used are very advanced for each and every place within the tank, my dear children. So there are like several special parts that we can observe within a tank. So within that each and every parts of a tank, the technological advancement is very high. Okay, right. So the reservoir constructed across a river, canal, or branch of it with the aim of collecting sufficient water for agricultural activities is known as a tank. So the reservoir constructed across a river, canal, or a branch of it with the aim of collecting sufficient water for agricultural activities is known as a tank. So tank or else Vaver is a construction made out by So a weber or else a tank, okay, weber or else a tank is a special kind of a reservoir, right, or else a structure which is made out by constructing constructing and making a barrier within a river, canal, or else a reservoir, right? It can be any kind of reservoir. Here we are going to dam it, right? We are going to dam it, right? We're going to build up a dam on it, on a reservoir or else a river or else any kind of a canal. So we are going to build a dam across it. Then we are going to cover up a certain area so that water can be collected to this particular area, which can be used within the agricultural purposes during the dry season, my dear children. Okay, so water is collected to this particular area when we are making a dam across it. Okay, so this water can be used within the dry season for our agricultural purposes. So this kind of a structure which is created by obstructing or by blocking a certain waterway like a river or else a canal or else a reservoir is referred to as a tank, or else in our terms weber. Okay, right. So the large tanks distributed in the dry zone of Sri Lanka hold a huge water capacity. Major factor that should be paid attention to constructing such large scale tanks is keeping the gathered water for long time. So my dear children, here it is once again given, the large tanks distributed in the dry zone of Sri Lanka hold a huge water capacity. So you know that, right, in Sri Lanka there are large amount of tanks in the dry zone, especially in the dry zone. It's because, my dear children, now for the wet zone, in the wet zone rain is plenty available, no, throughout the year rain is available within the wet zone. So therefore it's easy to carry out agriculture in the wet zone. But however, in the dry zone, my dear children, right, in the dry zone, the amount of rain which is being received through when you take the whole year is somewhat lesser than the wet zone. So therefore, I mean, like when you compare the wet zone with the dry zone, within the dry zone, my dear children, there are several months in the year that they will not receive plenty of rain or plenty of water. So therefore, my dear children, it's important to collect water which is coming from the rainy time period, which can be consumed during the dry time period. Okay, so tanks are built to fulfill this purpose, in order to collect water during the rainy time period and which to be utilized within the dry time period. Okay, so the large tanks distributed in dry zone, right? Large tanks distributed in the dry zone of Sri Lanka holds huge capacity of water, right? So within the dry zone, my dear children, there are a large number of tanks, and these tanks are going to hold heavy amount of water, heavy capacity of water. Major factor that should be paid attention to constructing such large scale tanks is keeping the gathered water for long time. So major factor that should be paid attention to constructing large scale tanks is keeping the gathered water for a long time. So my dear children, the other thing is that major factor that should be paid attention to constructing such large tank is keeping the gathered water for a long time. Now the first and foremost idea of building a large tank within the dry zone is to keep large capacity of water within the tank. So in order to hold large amount of water within the tank, right, or within the reservoir, tanks are being built. That is the main aim of constructing a tank, my dear children. Okay. Then also by controlling the pressure caused by its colossal capacity of gathered water and controlling the power caused by its extremely destructive pressure when the water is taken out for use. So the next one is to control the pressure caused by the colossal capacity of gathered water and to control the power caused by its extremely destructive pressure when the water is taken out for use. So it's very important to control the pressure, right? It's very important to control the pressure, right, given out, right, when we are using this water. You know that as there are heavy amount of water, large, I mean like a colossal capacity of water is there within the tank. So therefore, when water is taken out, right, it's important to control the pressure which is coming out from the water. So control of that pressure is also a greater, or else it is paying a good or else a greater attention, right, to decrease that pressure. So we have to pay, or the ancient people had to pay a great attention to decrease the pressure when using or when utilizing this water. Okay, water which is coming out from the tanks, right? So as you can see, the figure shows an ancient tank bund, right? An ancient tank bund, right? So this is the ancient, this is a example for an ancient tank bund, my dear children, right? So there are several functions done by tank bund: sluice, Bisokotuwa, the sluice gate, Ralapanawa, and canal, which are considered as the major parts of a tank. So like I said, my dear children, main aim is to collect large amount of water within the reservoir or within the tank. And the second main objective is to release water at a lower pressure when using this water, right? So ancient had paid good attention for these two facts when those people are constructing these tanks. So my dear children, figure of a tank, main part of a tank is given in here. As you can see, major parts of a tank can be identified within the figure given here. So this is the main river. Then by abstracting the main river or the canal, my dear children, like this, we are building a certain tank. So this is the tank. So within the tank, my dear children, you can observe these factors, or these components can be observed: Bisokotuwa, tank bund, the sluice, Ralapanawa, right? And also, other than that, my dear children, there is another one called Vev Ismath, right? Vev Ismath, or the head wall, right? So like that way, there are different kinds of parts that can be observed within a tank, right? So now let's focus about the main parts that we can observe within a tank and their functions. So here it is given, there are several functions done by tank bund, sluice, Bisokotuwa. Bisokotuwa is also referred to as the sluice gate. Then Ralapanawa and the canal, which are considered as the major parts of a tank. So these are the major parts of a tank, right? What are the parts? Tank bund, sluice, Bisokotuwa or the sluice gate, Ralapanawa and the canal. Okay. Then my dear children, the tank bund was built with soil connecting the hills from either side. The robustness is essential if the stability of the tank bund and needs to be protected, right? So the main or the whole idea of creating a tank bund is to maintain the stability of the tank, my dear children. It is the one, tank bund is the one, or that is the structure which helps to maintain right? That is the structure which helps to maintain the structure of the tank, right? So tank bund was built with soil connecting the hills from either sides, right? By using the hills at the either sides, they are connecting these hills together to create the tank bund. The robustness is essential if the stability of the tank bund and needs to be protected, right? So robustness is essential if the stability of the tank bund and need to be protected. Okay, so to keep the stability of the tank bund, right, and also to keep the robustness, right, this tank bund is very important. Tank bund is a very important factor, right, my dear children. So in order to keep the robustness and the stability, now let's see what are the factors or what are the things that can be observed within the tank bund. Okay, so here it is given to maintain the situation, I mean to maintain the robustness and the strength of the tank. Okay, to keep the structure of the tank properly, right? A systematic methodology has been applied. Tank bund had been constructed of several soil layers. So to keep that strength, to keep that robustness, okay, to keep that strength and robustness, tank bund has been constructed with several soil layers. So it contains several soil layers. It had been made of several thoroughly beaten layers, such as a layer of clay, soil, gravel and clay, kirimati, kept one on one. So my dear children, see how does the tank bund has been created with. So in order to keep the tank bund rigid, right, in order to keep the robustness and also to keep the optimum strength, what have done here is it is been thoroughly beaten by different layers, right? So different layers are being kept and thoroughly beaten so that it will fit into a certain one layer. So what are the layers? Layers such as a layer of clay. There is a clay layer, then soil layer, then a gravel layer, and once again a clay layer, which is somewhat harder clay, which is also referred to as the kirimati. So this kirimati layer has the ability to fit when they dry up. So they fit very well. Even kirimati is being used during the ancient times, my dear children, to build up the houses, right, as a plaster, right? So there are different layers, my dear children. So these layers are being fixed together and being beaten up so that they will fix together to create one single layer. So there is an advanced technology which is being used here to make out the tank bund. So to keep the strength and the robustness, what they have done is they have created or they have made this tank bund by using different layers of soil and gravel and clay. Okay, right then. When water in large tanks is taken out, a huge pressure is exerted and the magnitude of the pressure increases with the height of water column. So you know that when a certain tank is going to collect water, with the increasement of water level, right, with the increasement of the water level, large amount of water is getting collected to the reservoir, right? Reservoir means here the tank. So when increasing the water level, right, upon increasing the water level, you know that height of the water level is also increased. So you know that according to the hydrostatic pressure, height of the water column is directly proportional to the pressure created, right? So we calculate hydrostatic pressure by using H rho G, right? So here H means the height of the liquid column. So when increasing the height of the liquid column, obviously the pressure created by the water is also going to increase. So when the tank is going to collect more and more water, the height of the water column increases, therefore the pressure created by the water is also going to increase. So upon releasing this water, when we are using this, right, this water in our agricultural purposes, my dear children, we have to use it now. So upon releasing this water, water is creating a huge pressure, my dear children. Okay, water is creating a huge pressure as there are large amount of water collected within the tank, right? The sluice was built at a specific level on the tank bund using huge pieces of stones in a way that it began from the area where water is filled in the tank bund and going under the tank bund or piercing it. A slab of stone connected to sluice vertically was used to release water. There are more than one sluice made in tanks with a high bund. So the sluice was built at a specific level on the tank bund using huge pieces of stones in a way that it began from the area where water is filled in the tank bund and going under the tank bund or piercing it. So here the sluice is being made. Now I told you in the earlier time, my dear children, water is creating a heavy pressure. Okay, water is creating a heavy pressure, right, at the bottom level of the tank. So in order to utilize this water, we have to get water from a certain topmost level. If you are going to receive water from the bottommost level, then the pressure would increase and it will definitely damage, right, the tank bund, and also it will definitely damage the agricultural lands which been used. Okay, so it is a risk to take water from bottom levels. So we have to take water from the topmost levels. So to get water from topmost levels with less pressure, a sluice has been made. So there are different sluices, right, in different levels of the tanks. There can be several sluices in several levels of the tank, my dear children. So this sluice helps to get water at a low pressure. So these things are made by, right, these things are made by using different kinds of large stones. Okay, by using different kinds of large stones, and these things are built at a specific level of a tank bund, right? And also, my dear children, it is going to begin from one certain area where water is filled in the tank bund and going under the tank bund or piercing it. So the specialty here is that the water which is coming out from the sluice blade, okay, water which is coming out the sluice is going to come out through the tank bund or by piercing it. So see the technology, advanced technology over here. The tank bund is also not going to damage. However, through it, the water is coming out at a lower pressure. So this technology is pretty much advanced. Okay. So a slab of stone connected to the sluice vertically was used to release water. There are more than one sluice made in the tank with a high bund. So a slab of stone connected to the sluice vertically was used to release water. So to release water when needed, a vertically built slab of stone could be observed. Okay, so this slab of stone which was built vertically was placed within the sluice gate, okay, within the sluice, in order to release water when needed, my dear children. Okay, so like I said, there can be several, right, sluice made within the tank with a high bund. So within certain levels of the tank bund, my dear children, different kinds of sluices are being made according to the need, according to the size of the tank, right? So my dear children, The next one, Bisokotuwa. So, Bisokotuwa is also a part of the sluice. So, my dear children, Bisokotuwa is also a part of the sluice. That means, my dear children, this Bisokotuwa part is included within the sluice. So, sluice is also containing the part called Bisokotuwa. Okay. Now, let's identify what are the special features, key features that can be identified within the Bisokotuwa. Right. Bisokotuwa is also a part of the sluice. It means the rectangular space made of the stones. So, it is like a rectangular space made up with stones. So, I'll take the slide somewhat forward to show that structure. So, this is that structure. So, this is the sluice gate. Sluice gate means the Bisokotuwa, my dear children. So, this rectangular structure is the one which is referred to as the Bisokotuwa. Okay. So, once again, I'm coming back. So it is made up of stones and it has a rectangular shape. So, here from which water flows out from the tank. So, from here, my dear children, from this structure, water is going to flow out from the tank. Its purpose is to take water out with less pressure level after releasing water at different pressure levels. So, the purpose of Bisokotuwa is, my dear children, to take out water at a lower pressure level, right? Reduction of pressure is the main purpose of Bisokotuwa, right? So, this Bisokotuwa can be observed within the tank. So, it helps to reduce the pressure and take out water at a lower pressure level, right? Then, the mud sluice is at the bottom. There is another one called mud sluice. Okay. So, mud sluice is at the bottom of a tank bund. Okay. So, there is another one called mud sluice. So, the purpose of mud sluice is, my dear children, right, in order to collect, the silt and the humus particles. You know that there are dead plant and animal materials which are floating like a precipitation here and there within the water. So, during rainy season, my dear children, these particles would come and collect within this water or within the tank. So, this will get collected within the tank. So, in order to collect these silt kind of substances or mud kind of substances, humus particles, right? There is a special kind of a sluice which is referred to as the mud sluice. So, the mud sluice is at the bottom level of a tank. So, this mud sluice was used to remove that kind of silt and other kinds of humus substances. So, it helps to collect out those things, right? It helps to collect out those kinds of substances, silt and other humus particles. So, mud sluice is also a very important factor, right? Mud sluice is also a very important factor contained within this sluice, my dear children. So, within the sluice, my dear children, as you can see here, there are several factors. One factor is the Bisokotuwa and the other factor is the mud sluice, which helps to avoid the humus particles or the silt collected within the water. Okay, especially, my dear children, these things are getting collected when the rain is going to come. So, because of the rain, all the humus particles contained around a certain area come and get collected within the water, right? Especially within the tank. So, therefore, in order to remove and in order to collect these humus particles and other waste substances, right? Like these are like precipitations, my dear children. I mean, like these things are not getting dissolved within the water. So, these things are getting precipitated within the water. So, to collect out those precipitations, right, this mud sluice is being used. Okay, mud sluice is being used. Especially this is beneficial during the rainy time period. Okay, right then. So, as you can see, I think I have shown you this figure about the Bisokotuwa. Then when a tank is filled with water, waves occur on the surface. So you know that when a tank is filled up with water up to its maximum potential level, right, what will happen? Water is going to create waves, as there are large amount of water because of having wind. Definitely, right, what will happen? Waves will be created within the water. So waves can erode the tank bund. So waves has the ability to erode the tank bund. When the waves are going to come and hit the tank bund, the wall of the tank bund will gradually get eroded because of the water waves. So therefore, the Ralapanava is made by keeping stones on the interior slope of the tank bund, right? So Ralapanava is a special kind of a structure which is placed or which is made by using different stones and other rocks. So these rocks and stones are placed underneath the tank bund, my dear children. That means on the tank bund these stones, right, are being placed. So it helps to avoid the erosion of tank bund, right? So the waves will come and hit on the stones and on that rock walls without hitting the tank bund. So the tank bund is getting saved because of that Ralapanava structure which is made by stone. Okay. So here it is given, the Ralapanava is made by keeping the stones on the interior slope of the tank bund. A brink or else isvati is built to avoid collecting water with eroded mud, sand and gravel to the tank water. So isvati is also used to avoid the collecting of water with eroded mud, sand and gravel to the tank water, right? So the next one, the small sized water tank built in the upper part of the tank collect water first and next to the large tank. So there are, so associated with the large tank, there can be several other smaller tanks, my dear children. So specialty here is that small sized water tanks built in the upper part of the tank, they collect water first and then next to the large tank. Okay. So associating with one large huge tank, there can be several other branches like structures. So these branches like structures are also going to collect water, and if there are excessive water in it, then it will flow and come out to the larger tank. So the technology is pretty much advanced in here. I mean, like, if you take the technology of water collection, it's marvelous, right? It's a wonderful creation of, or wonderful architectural creation of the human beings, right? Ancient people. So my dear children, this tanks has a wonderful technology in balancing and maintaining the natural resources and also in sustainable development too, right? Okay then, so these are the special structures that can be identified within the tank, and my dear children, they are special uses. Right, my dear children. So I hope that you got the idea about the parts contained within a tank, and my dear children, they are special uses and functions which is carried out in order to manage and in order to systems contained within the tank, and also in order to have the good irrigation system within a tank. Okay. So like I said, my dear children, the structures contained within the tank, right, is going to provide a good sustainable development procedures, and also, my dear children, it is also managing our environmental resources quite well and in an eco-friendly method. Okay, right then, now let's head on to see the next content. So the upper part of the tank, that is head wall or valve ismatta. So like I said, my dear children, can you remember when I was starting the lesson part, I told you about the valve ismatta thing, right? So valve ismatta or else the head wall. So head wall of the tank, valve ismatta, is the catchment area, water catchment area. So it is going to act as the water catchment area. That means on that particular area, my dear children, water is getting collected. water is being catched. Okay, so water catchment area is the head wall or the väyismatha. So clearing forest, cultivation and buildings of the houses is strictly prohibited in this area. So clearing forest, cultivation and building of houses is strictly prohibited in this area, my dear children. Right? So it is the one which is going to act as the water catchment area. So therefore, it's very important to, right, not to build houses, right, not to clear the forest cover within this area, and also this area not being used for the cultivation purposes as well. So because this area is the main area which act as the water catchment area. Okay, so therefore it's very important to keep this area vacant. Right? So my dear children, cultivation is not carried out within this area, right? And there are no any buildings also, right? This is the väyismatha or else the head wall of a tank. Then my dear children, the surrounding area parallel to the water level is known as väytaulla, and this is rich with natural habitats of flora and fauna. Accordingly, tank is a marvelous human creation that is compatible with nature. So, the surrounding area parallel to the water level is known as the väytaulla. So, the surrounding area parallel to the water level is referred to as the väytaulla. So, this area contains large amount of different kinds of plants and other flora. So this area is it is having a large amount of, or it is having a high density of biodiversity, right? That means, my dear children, different kinds of plants and animals can be observed within this particular area. Okay, so large amount of flora and other kinds of plants and also different kinds of insects and animals can be observed within this area. So as you can see, now you can clearly get an idea that if you take the construction, right, this tank construction, if you're going to take the tank construction, my dear children, we can clearly identify that this tank construction is a wonderful and a marvelous masterpiece of irrigation technology. So specialty here is that this irrigation facility is made by ancient technology, not by the modern technology, my dear children, but however by using the ancient technology within the Sri Lanka itself. So as you can see, now when you are going through with the lesson, you can clearly identify the ancient people who lived like thousands of years back. Those people had a great technological, right? They had a great technological advancement. So they use this technological advancement, they use their brains in order to cordially work with the nature, right? Not to go against it, but to work with it. So that's why we are saying that these traditional methods, each and every traditional method is eco-friendly, and also that those methods are sustainable, my dear children. Okay, right then. So, assignment given. Make a scientific investigation about the technology of irrigation system of Sri Lanka and prepare a report. So, you have to do a scientific investigation about the technology of irrigation systems of Sri Lanka, my dear children. That means, my dear children, you have to do different kinds of researchers. So within these researchers, you have to find out the technological advancement that can be observed within the tank or within our irrigation systems. Okay, so here it is given. Make out a scientific investigation about the technology of irrigation system. So find out the technology of irrigation systems. Like I said, my dear children, Sri Lanka, right? When you take the Sri Lanka, ancient people who lived in Sri Lanka, they had a very good technology about the irrigation systems. So like I said when I was starting this chapter, when you take the Sigiriya rock fortress, there is still no evidence, there's still no method to show how water is being carried out that kind of a place from the lower levels, right? Especially till now, my dear children, there is no such evidence to show that kind of a procedure. Scientists are still doing investigations like how the people used to take water to that kind of a height, right? Still it's going to be a mysterious case, right? Still it is a mystery. So my dear children, like that way there are like several advanced technological developments, right? There are different kinds of technological advanced developments that can be observed within the ancient time period, right? So those technological advancements even not been identified right now, right? So therefore our Sri Lanka had a great vast technology, especially in irrigation systems. So what you have to do is you have to find out these things, okay? You have to find out the factors, you have to find out and you have to investigate about the irrigation technology of Sri Lanka. And what you have to do then, you have to prepare a report about these advanced developments, okay? So I hope that you will follow out this activity assignment and you will do it at your home, my dear children, okay? So most of the times, my dear children, I think you have learned about these things in your history, right? In your history related in your history related lessons, my dear children. I think when you are learning about the subject history, I think you have got a family about this lesson part, my dear children. Especially over there when we are discussing about the Yodala construction, I think you have heard about this kind of a technology, advanced technologies which has been used over there, okay? So for this assignment, my dear children, you can get the help of your history teacher as well, okay? Or else you can refer the history book as well, my dear children. Over there you might find some useful and key points regarding the irrigation technology and the irrigation development in Sri Lanka during the ancient time period, okay? So I hope that you will follow up these things and you will do these things at your home, okay? Right. So with that part, my dear children, I'm going to finish up this chapter. So within this chapter, we mainly focused about the traditional methods, right? Traditional methods of environmental management and the sustainable development. We focused about the irrigation systems in mainly, okay? So we discussed about the sustainable methods of irrigation systems. Especially over there we have discussed about the traditional irrigational systems related to a tank. So we discussed about the special parts contained within the tank and the functions carried out by a tank. And finally we proved that tank is a wonderful, marvelous technological creation, right, which is going to coincide with the sustainable development and the environmental management, okay? Right. So with that one, my dear children, I'm going to finish up the chapter. So within our next chapter, we'll be discussing further things related to the lesson, okay?
To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.